Bring in the jury, please. Mr. Dickerson, you're late. Don't let it happen again, because it makes the jury wait. Do you understand?
My understanding is only 8:45.
It's your understanding. You're the only one that didn't hear 8:30 then, because all the jurors were here at 8:30. The state was here at 8:30. The witnesses were here at 8:30. I need you to listen. Okay, it's not about me. It's about all of these people that are waiting for you.
I was only slightly late. I think if you just knew it happens.
No, it's not. It doesn't just happen. You need to be here on time. You're 20 minutes late.
Noted.
Very well. Let's not let it happen again. The next time there will be consequences. Is there anything we need to take up before we bring in the jury?
No, Your Honor, we have some exhibits if the defendant would like to take a look at them before we offer them.
Show them to him now. I appreciate that.
We have a call to listen to it.
No.
And we've got some photos with the first officer.
Okay.
These are questions of the line cameras, but just then reduce the repetition. So the max for witnesses.
Okay.
Mr. Gibbert, do you need the projector? The Elmo?
No, we have physical copies of the exhibits at Lincoln, but we also have them digitally on a PowerPoint. We can just show once exhibits are entered on.
All rise for the jury.
You may be seated. We'll wait for you. You may be seated. Every time you all will enter the courtroom, we will wait for you all to be seated before we seat ourselves out of respect for what you're doing for us. Thank you all for being here and for being here on time. I noticed that many of you have notepads with you. That is absolutely acceptable. But I want to let you know that later on, you will not be able to take those into deliberations. And you're probably thinking, well, why does he let us take notes if we can't take it back into deliberations? The reason is that I find that sometimes people will take those notes back there and say, this is what was said. And this is as if that were the transcript. And sometimes people can use that against others that they don't remember correctly. Your collective memory of what you heard will be how you will decide this case. So remember to, what that emphasizes is that we need you to focus on the witnesses, listen to everything that they say, and understand and pay attention. There's another point. Some of you may think, oh, well, if I miss something later on, we can just ask for that person's testimony and just get a transcript of the testimony. And it doesn't work like that. There's only limited times when you can get some of the transcript read back to you. When I read you the charge of the court and the instructions, you'll get all that information at the end, but it's very limited. So once again, that emphasizes to pay attention here now. And if you need to take notes and that helps to jog your memory as we go, please feel free to do that. So thank you for being here. All right, State, can you please approach and read the indictment for us? Mr. Dickerson, can you please rise?
The state of Texas versus Morgan Dickerson. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, the grand jury for Hays County, Texas, presents to the 453rd District Court of Hays County, Texas, the following charge. On or about the 27th day of November, 2023, in Hays County, Texas, the defendant, Morgan Brevard Dickerson, did then and there intentionally, knowingly, and recklessly cause bodily injury to Elliot Garcia by shooting Elliot Garcia with a firearm, and the defendant used or exhibited a deadly weapon, namely a firearm, during commission of the assault against the peace and dignity of the state, signed on the 7th day of February, 2024, signed by the grand jury foreperson.
To that charge, Mr. Dickerson, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
All right, you may be seated, and I will make an entry into the criminal docket of your plea of not guilty. State, are you ready to give an opening statement?
Judge, state plans to waive opening and go straight into the evidence.
Very good. State, please call your first witness.
State calls Officer Vargas to the stand.
Can you please raise your right hand? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Please have a seat. Sir, if you would please adjust yourself close to that microphone so it will pick you up and everyone can hear you in the courtroom. And please tell us your name and spell it for the court reporter.
I'm Officer Vargas, D-A-R-G-A-S.
And if you would, maybe just, you can adjust it up towards your mouth a little more, just so that it'll pick you up clearly. All right, State, you may proceed.
I'm sorry.
Officer Vargas, can you say your first name and spell that as well?
Joseph, J-O-S-E-P-H.
Officer Vargas, can you explain what you do for a living?
Yes, sir. I'm a police officer for the city of San Marcos.
And to become a police officer for the city of San Marcos, what training and experience do you have to even enter that job?
You have to attend the police academy, is led by a department. You want to San Marcos, go through their own mini police academy, and then go through filming.
I want to break those up just real quick. Kind of seems like you mentioned 3 different things. So what do you learn in a police academy, the regular?
Our criminal laws, patrol tactics, all aspects of the job. So,
And you said in addition to the normal police academy where you learn all those basic aspects, did you do any further training before starting the San Marcos?
not before starting, yes, sir.
Gotcha. You mentioned a smaller police academy with San Marcos. What was that?
Sir, so it is put on by the San Marcos Police Department to show, to teach us their way of policing, specific policies and things like that.
And I'm assuming that you do that before being out in the field.
Yes,
Once you become an officer, is there any probationary period or things like that that you have to go through?
you go through your field training program. Upon completion of that, you're on 1 year probation.
And what happens after that 1 year probation?
Then you're regular officer.
Okay. At this point in time, are you a regular officer? Have you completed all of that training and things?
I have, I believe, 2 or 3 more months of probationary.
Okay. Do you have a officer during that time, watching and making sure you're doing everything correctly?
Not during the probationary phase, it's regular supervision.
Okay. Back when this offense occurred in November of 2023, what was your role in the San Marcos Police Department?
I was a probationary police officer. By probationary police officer, I mean I was still within the training program, the field training.
And did you get called out to, do you remember being called out to any sort of offense back on November 27th of 2023? Do you remember what type of call that was?
The call you're representing is an assault call, aggravated assault.
And when I say that you received a call, what does that mean to you as a police officer?
Means that a call for service came in. I.e. someone called 911 or a non-emergency number to report a crime that is occurring or had occurred.
And then how do you get sent out to that call after that initial 911 call comes in?
We're dispatched through the dispatchers they assign who answers what call, and then depending on the severity of the call, whatever sergeants or corporals may ask that other officers fill in, or if we see a need ourselves, we can self-assign that call.
Your Honor, permission to approach defense with what we're marking as states 1 and playing the 911 call.
Approach the defense.
Just to make sure that he's seen.
Very good.
No.
Do you have any objections to State's Exhibit 1?
No.
State's Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Now, can we publish to the jury?
You may.
PM, 8/2nd, November 27, 2023. And what is 911, what's the address of your emergency? I'm gonna text you right now. I don't know for sure. I just asked him to send it to me, but I just got my friend off, and my other friend got shot in the leg by some dude in that parking lot. You don't remember where they're at? They're in what parking lot? It's 618 L. Marcus, Texas. Rio, you said? R-I-O? Yeah, okay. E-L-R-I-O. Okay. Are any of them able to call or? I called you because I just saw it and, or I was driving away and then, somebody called me, somebody got shot and he was driving me up to the hospital. Okay, so he's no longer gonna be at this address, is that correct? No, not there, but the guy that shot him is always lingering around those apartments, he's been real sketchy, like, we kinda had it like a couple days ago, had to tell him something, because he was like sitting really close to the work truck, looking like he was trying to steal people, so we told him like, hey buddy, what are you doing, why did you call? And now this happened today. Okay, so that was the only conflict that we had. Okay. How many minutes ago did this happen? It was about 8 minutes ago. Okay. Yeah. I need to get the suspect's description. What is his race? Is he white, black, Hispanic? Okay. Do you know how old he is? I want to say early 30s, let's do that. What was she wearing? I honestly just saw it really quick and I saw it then outside driving. Okay, don't know what it is. Okay, gotcha. Was he driving a vehicle? No, I don't know. Got to the front office and happened in the parking lot. Okay. I'm the future friends that live there, and I'm always in and out of there. Okay, and how many were injured? Just how many suspects were involved? Just that one? Yes. Okay. And you know where all white, good head, probably wearing ball cap. Not really wearing one and trying to take it off so it doesn't look suspicious that he's trying to hide. Okay. Just to confirm that meal was on foot, is that correct? Yes. Okay. Then I need to get the weapon description. What kind was it? Were you able to get a good look? They had a jacket, I had to get that, and I drove away quick to the key, but I had these looking too, and I got scared. Okay. drive home before I threw the call because I was shaking too much. Okay, is anyone in danger right now? I mean, everybody that's in the apartment complex. He seemed a little off, like, and then, like, I don't know, I don't know what he said, it was like not all good, but he seemed a little off, and he could be just having and stuff too. Okay, okay, and then I need to get your friend's description if you want to watch Hispanic. Hispanic, okay. How old is he? Not sure. Okay, if you could guess. Late 30s, late 30s, okay. And what was I wearing? Black sweater. I work in here, so I might just have some of my regulars that, I jump off over there and get too lit. And what's your friend's name again? Michael? And then his last name? $30, okay. And that is that with an X at the end or a G? Do you know his date of birth? I don't know, okay. And what apartment number is he at? 618. I know. 19 something. I don't know, I just got him off in the parking lot. Okay, gotcha, okay. And where is he now? You said that, earlier you said he was trying to drive himself to the hospital. Do you know if he is actually going? Yes, he got shot in the leg. And, do you know what hospital he's going to? I'm hoping the one you like, yeah, one below. Okay. I don't know, I just called y'all. Do you know what vehicle your friend is driving? In the blue truck that has, like what lettering on the side and like blue and white on like a big magnet and has a black girl. Okay. If you go or return to that location, do not approach the person, make yourself known to the police officer. I'm going to let you go now, an officer will be dispatched as soon as possible. Call us back if you get new information or need further assistance, okay? Let's call this method again? Yeah, if you have any new information, like let's say your friend does make it to the hospital and maybe he didn't go to the one on Wonderworld and went to a completely different one, definitely give us a call back and just update us. If I can get your first and last name. Peter, how do you spell your last name? Keeter. Okay. And do you have your friend's phone number? On Instagram. Oh, usually that's how you communicate with him? Yeah, okay, I have it with my number. Okay, gotcha. Okay, well, we'll try and get someone, like I said, out to, the hospital too to make sure that he's okay, but we'll have someone go back to that location. You said he was in the parking lot, correct? Yes. Okay, do you know where in the parking lot? Like, do you remember? By the school building? By the which building? I don't know, I always got them off at the night, okay. I'll go ahead and let you go, and then, like I said, we'll get someone headed back to the complex, and then also to check on your friend, okay? Okay, thank you, appreciate you. No problem, thank you, bye-bye.
Officer Vargas, after a 911 call like that comes in, or after that 911 call came in, where were you dispatched to that day?
I responded to this call at the request of the sergeant on duty.
And where did you go?
I was sent up to San Mays Hospital in God.
When you got there, what was the person that you were?
First thing I did was attempt to locate the victim.
Were you able to?
I made contact with KP officers who advised that he was back in a scan.
where you were able to eventually find the victim in this case, while at the hospital.
Yes,
What did you observe about him and his injuries when you initially made contact?
started in the hospital bed, being treated by several medical staff.
But you were able to see what the defendant looked like, and the state that he was in on that day, right
Yes,
after the shooting.
yes,
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with what's been marked as State's Exhibit 2, 3, and 4.
You may.
Officer Vargas, what did I just hand you?
you gave me photos of the victim.
And those photos that I just handed you, are they fair and accurate representations of what the victim looked like on November 27th when you met him at the hospital?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, state offers exhibits 2, 3, and 4 into please.
Any objections?
No.
State's Exhibit 2, 3, and 4 are admitted.
Can I publish to the jury?
You may.
Can I also approach and tender to the court?
Yes.
Officer Vargas, just for the record, can you give a brief description of what is shown in exhibit 2?
Yes, sir, that is a victim laid on the hospital bed.
And do you know about how much time after the initial shooting this picture was taken?
I'm not sure, sir.
How quickly did you get to the hospital?
I would say probably within 30 minutes of the initial call.
State Exhibit 3. What does this photo depict?
That would be the victim and the balloon.
State Exhibit 4. Is that just a close up of that balloon?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Officer Vargas, when you were in the hospital, were you able to talk to the victim about the offense that had occurred?
Yes, sir.
Were you able to talk to him about where the offense occurred?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I want to start there so that we can get an idea of where this was. Where did he tell you that the offense occurred that day?
He advised that the altercation began within the prisoner's first apartment complex.
I'm sorry, repeat that?
I was advised that the altercation began within the Emerson Trace apartment complex.
And do you know where that apartment complex is?
Yes, sir.
Where is it?
It's on the south side of the city, just a little south of the Outlaws,
South side of which city?
the city of San Marcos, sir.
Okay. If I were to show you a map with San Marcos and where that apartment complex is labeled, would you be able to tell us if that was a fair and accurate representation of that map?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, can I approach the witness with what's been pre-marked State's Exhibit 5?
You may. And after you've asked the initial time, you can continue to go up without asking.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
I'll approach with Exhibit 6 as well. Officer Vargas, what did I just hand you?
You had the maps of the city and satellite image of Google Maps.
And those two maps, both the regular Google map and the satellite photo, are those fair and accurate representations what those areas of San Marcos look like?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, the state offers State Exhibit 5 and 6 into evidence.
Any objections?
No.
State's Exhibit 5 and 6 are admitted.
Can we publish, Judge?
You may.
So State Exhibit 5, what is this map of?
It's a map of the city of San Marcos.
Where are the Emerson and Trace apartments that you were talking about earlier?
They're on the right and the bottom left orange screen.
Where the, I guess the red pin label is on that? Where are the, just so we have a idea of where we are in San Marcos, where are the outlets, in regards to that apartment complex?
There is a little further north of 35, it's on the blue beam.
Perfect. State's Exhibit 6. Now, what is this coming out of?
That shows the intersection of Vanderbilt Trace and Rolling Drive.
Now, why does this look like a screenshot from a phone?
Because I screenshotted it there whenever the victim was explaining where the rounds were fired at.
Okay, and so can you kind of explain to us what that sequence of events looked like where you were talking to the victim?
I was talking to the victim, getting his sword, his statement, and he asked if I could pull up a map to show apartment and relative locations. And so I used my work issue cell phone to pull up Google Maps, and that is the area that the victim said that the shooting occurred.
And do you know where, based on this map, like the apartments or the Emerson at Trace would be?
The apartments would be west towards 35.
So would that be, I guess, left down Van Horn Trace?
Yes,
Perfect. And so he said that the shooting happened where this map is, but that the apartments are a little bit off screen to the left, I guess.
yes.
Perfect. And then when he showed you that on your department issued cell phone, how did you preserve this for us?
I believe it's uploaded to our evidence system.
You took a screenshot of this?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So after you kind of had an idea of where this occurred, what else did you talk to the victim about that day in the hospital?
I got his full initial statement of the events that occurred.
Do you remember what he initially told you about the shooting violence?
Sir, he advised that I believe there was 2 or 3 rounds that were fired again near that intersection on the map. I further asked if he knew who the suspect was.
And let's stop there and go into that. Did he know the person's name?
No, sir, he did not.
What did he tell you about the suspect?
He gave me a physical description and advised that he has had encounters with him before and that he lives within the same complex.
And did the victim live at this apartment complex that we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
These previous encounters that he had, did he describe those to you?
Briefly, yes, sir.
What did he tell you about those previous encounters with the suspect?
He said that he had had a disagreement with the suspect regarding the suspect looking at the vehicle windows.
Did he explain if any of those prior conflicts led to a fight at all?
He didn't elaborate.
Just that he had prior interactions?
Yes, sir.
Officer Vargas, during this interaction with the victim, were you wearing a body cam?
Yes, sir.
Are you wearing a body cam today?
Yes, sir.
What piece of equipment on your vest is the body cam?
That's this one right here in the center. That is this one here in the center. Yes.
Perfect. And when do you, as a police officer here in San Marcos, when do you use that body cam?
Usually anytime I'm interacting with the public or conducting an investigation.
Can you briefly explain how, like, when you turn it on, when you make that decision?
Usually as I'm entering approaching to make contact with an individual.
So in this instance, on November 27th of 2023, did you have your body cam on back?
Yes, sir.
Was it correctly operating?
Yes, sir.
Did you turn it on when you went down?
Yes, sir.
Did you record the entire interaction between you and the victim that afternoon?
Yes, sir.
Before coming to trial today, did you review that body cam, this one?
Yes.
The body cam that you reviewed, was that a fair and accurate depiction of the people, places, and events that it recorded on November 27th, 2020?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, state offers State's Exhibit 7 into evidence, the body camera of Officer Lawrence.
Any objections?
None, but I would like to make a statement.
No. The only question is whether you have an objection to State's Exhibit 7.
I have no objection, but let me say this.
No, this is not the opportunity.
Defense,
No, hold on. Wait, sir, please. May you approach.
okay. I would like to
You do not.
address the court
You do not make it so that.
as the defense.
Okay, stop. Donkey, please take the jury outside.
All right, for the jury. The defense is going to
Nope,
rest in
nope,
this case.
No,
And
sir,
the jury is
please.
given notice.
Sir.
certified.
sir, please. I've asked you, follow the procedure in here. So it's fine. Okay, you wanted to say something to the court?
And judges did, the defense is going to rest in this case. Under the scrutiny of the jury, I'm sure that the jury did not get the verdict. And so, on those terms that the defense has rested, I'm going to depart, and it is time that the court can contact me.
And the what's that? No, okay. We are in the middle of your trial. It does not matter that you are resting. You have the right to be here for your trial.
Correct.
Understand that if you leave, you will be voluntarily removing yourself from the courtroom, and we can continue with your trial without you present.
Understood.
And is that your intent?
It is.
Okay, before you go, I need to go over some of the things. Do you understand what you are doing by making yourself absent from the court?
I do.
What is that?
I understand the full ramifications. This one's with the jury that, by reviewing the case presented by the state, we're going to come with their decision, and the defense is fine with that. That's it. I rested. I have no issues.
Okay, do you understand that this means that you will not have anyone here to cross-examine the state's witness?
Yes.
You have a constitutional right to confront the state's witness. Is it your decision to waive that right?
The current witness?
This witness or any witness?
Yes.
You choose not to confront those witnesses as you are constitutionally permitted to do.
During these proceedings.
Next. You have the right to be present for all significant parts of the trial, or any significant parts of a proceeding. The trial is always significant. Do you choose to make yourself unavailable for that and forego your right to be here?
I have been receiving notifications from the court, such as appearance dates, and so I'm unsure of the method you're going to use, but just prompt notice, and then if I need to appear. But at this point, like I said, I've rested, and I am fine with just being contacted by the court at the time that the jury, excuse me, reaches their verdict. That's what it's in.
Okay, your appearance date is right now. I'm telling you that it's your appearance date. If you're saying that you will comply with the court's orders to be here for your appearance date, that is now. So you must stay here.
Okay, as I stated. This defense is rested. Going to the part, I have no issue other than,
Okay. If you're going to depart, Before me, I have everyone can be seated. Larza, is Tim available or others? Wait.
Judge, one request.
You may.
Yesterday, I spoke to pretrial judicial services about this indictment, and they said that they needed a specific request from the court in order to reading of this. I know that the jury needs to find its verdict, but at the appropriate time, can we force that down?
Well, the ankle monitor is on during the pendency of this trial. The trial is still pending. It will remain on.
Judge,
Can both parties approach, please?
did you request both parties?
Both parties, yes, you too. Marcus, please approach. Marcus. All right, I want you all to have the opportunity to review that.
It generally means that the device was cut off. And we state that when I had the issues with the strap, which I tried to discuss with the court yesterday, that I needed to go down and speak with them about getting it possibly removed. They refused, and I contacted them both by phone and email yesterday afternoon. I received no response whatsoever, as though the pretrial judicial services weren't even monitoring the status of their own anklets. I had no point of contact, and we say, I spoke to them today and rectified the situation. So they received prompt notice when there's an issue with the strap. And like I said, by both phone and email, they received prompt notice and took care of it today. So I don't know why there's a bond violation. It happened.
Okay, well, you were not on your ankle monitor as required by the court yesterday. Isn't that correct?
Incorrect. I had the ankle monitor on yesterday with no issues, and I went through security with no problems, and I even revealed it to security. You can reveal the footage, and I had it at the time of court proceedings yesterday.
In the afternoon, you did not have the ankle monitor connected.
I had an issue with the strap yesterday, and which I informed pretrial judicial services. So they, like I said, I called them and emailed, and I received no response. So I had to take care of it today. I had no other way to rectify the situation. So I've done my part. I'm unsure why there's a bond violation.
Okay, because you took it off. Whether it was because of the strap or not, you took it off and you didn't have it immediately replaced. When you took it off mid-afternoon, correct?
Let me say this, I had an issue with the strap, yes, and
You never had an issue until yesterday when you believed that you were entitled to take it off.
Well, I've gone almost a year with this with no issues, and if I have a problem, it happens. And they even stated on the bond violation, they're unsure of what exactly occurred. They just said generally. So,
Well, you're telling me that it is correct that you took off the monitor. You said it was bothering you, and so you took it off.
I said I had issues with the strap.
Okay, and
And so
did you take it off?
Well, yes, if I'm having issues with the strap, I have to,
Okay.
deal with the anklet. It's around like when I move.
And you wanted it off yesterday,
Correct.
right? That was during jury selection all morning. You told me that you were going to take it, you were going to get it removed.
Yes.
And when the court said that you could not remove it, you decided to remove it yourself.
What is the evidence of that? I'm not sure how you're presenting evidence that.
Well, I know that pretrial services did not remove it.
I have it on video. When I was here yesterday, I showed security, and they came in through the door, went through the metal detector, had my anklet on. In the afternoon, when I have an issue, we received prompt notice, both phone, email, so that we could try and correct it. Like I said, prompt notice. They didn't return my call. They didn't return emails.
So how did the anklet get removed yesterday?
I wear the email, or not email, I wear the anklet on a daily basis as
Okay, how did the monitor get removed yesterday?
I can't present evidence of it. So I'm providing the evidence. I have phone and email records and video, if they review it. It was in place, no issue yesterday. And when I did have an issue, there was a prompt notice by phone and email.
Okay.
That's all we have. That's
Okay,
the evidence.
so how did it get removed from your ankle?
I had to remove it.
That's right.
You didn't issue the strap.
You had to remove it. And so you removed it yourself.
Well, if there's an issue with the strap, it's not going to stay on the ankle.
That's a violation of the order. State, do you want to be heard?
Your Honor, I think the court's very clear.
That's not possible because, as I stated, I provided them prompt notice. I could not rectify the situation when I had an issue. They would not even, consult with me on this until this morning.
Okay,
So there's
you
nothing I
have
can do.
By taking that off, and then yesterday evening, no one knew where you were.
Well, of course they did.
And so that is a violation of your bond. I am going to revoke your bond and you will be taken into custody.
That's not possible, and I'm not going to be taken into custody. No, turn around. Don't. Do not do this. I have record. Relax. Do not. I have record. Relax. I've done nothing. They said I did nothing. They don't even know what happened here. You're just coming up with something.
All right.
No.
Morgan. Stop. Right now.
Relax. Morgan, relax.
I am the one relaxed. If you hadn't noticed, you attacked me.
Hang on, careful, your arm.
I've got this.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, please go off the record.
You're the security officer. You can look at the footage. I had it on yesterday.
Relax.
Sit on your butt. Sit down.
Good, you gonna take a break?
Yes, could someone please take the jury to the jury in the hall, the jury room? Okay.
I have all the evidence. I've done nothing. I have all the evidence. You can review it. Have you security guards looked at your own footage about yesterday? Or reviewed my anklet in place? No problem. Makes no sense. Judge no wrong. It's not no wrong.
Okay.
No.
Tim,
Yes.
let's just keep him up here and settle down, and we'll bring him back up and discuss with him what we're going to do next.
Yeah, that's all. Hey, guys, just hold me up here until we get.
Oh,
Hold him up here. Sitting in there like this. Does it go with it?
No, it goes kind of low out there.
Give time to settle down. Judge wants to talk on that.
Where are you referring to?
yeah, let's just,
You got the order done?
I do have the order,
You want to get the seal.
they came out to get the seal.
Long time no see.
Yes, ma'am, how are you?
Judge, we wouldn't step down.
You may.
Do we know approximately? 15, 20?
Let's just see, what we can do now. I want to give him a chance to settle down. I'll bring him out, try to discuss calmly with him what our plan is going forward, give him the opportunity to be here in court. And I would say let's give him 10 minutes to about a quarter till, and then we'll bring him out and discuss it with him.
I am slightly concerned about a competency issue. I don't know if the court wants to make inquiries in that vein to ensure that that is not an issue, but I just wanted to bring that to the court's attention.
Okay.
And can you be excused for about 15 minutes?
Judge,
or so?
yes, ma'am.
And thank you.
This isn't people. It's like, what's that? Yeah. So. Yeah, this is atheist. I wouldn't have wanted it. And this is what no. Let's bring him out. Can you click this on this case? I did this previously. All right, Mr. Dickerson. How are you doing, sir?
Judge.
We'll go on the record. Yes. We're back on the record. Have you settled down? How are you feeling?
You know, I'm so down.
Okay. Okay, very good.
I made no,
Here's the thing. The reason that you are now revoked is because I can't be sure that if you leave again, you're not going to take off your ankle monitor. Because that's what you did yesterday. Knowing that the court told you that the ankle monitor had to stay on during the pendency of the trial.
the evidence is to the contrary. As in, if I have an issue with the strap, and I provide prompt notice to pre-cut judicial services, there's nothing else I can do.
But to take it off yourself.
And I have,
Okay, well, that's what, and that's, let's assume that that premise is correct. And,
I've done nothing wrong.
okay, we'll assume that too. But what that tells me is that the same thing could happen again. You could take it off and there would not be any monitor on you. So, for the reasons of community and public safety, I have revoked your bond. I want you to understand that is why we're doing this, okay? Next, You are now in custody. You can be in court for your trial.
No,
Okay, let's go through a few things. Do you know what this trial is for?
apparently not.
Okay. What do you mean apparently not? You heard the state read the indictment regarding the shooting of Mr. Garcia with a firearm with a deadly weapon. Did you know that that's what you're here for?
Correct.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure you understand what's going on here. Because I have to look after your ability to be here and be here on your own. Because we talked before, you remember there's a form that you and I went over from the very beginning. It was called the Beretta warnings. And we talked about your background. We talked about all the rules that you would have to follow if you wanted to represent yourself, because you have the right to represent yourself.
And I've fulfilled my end of the bargain without issue. And so it's in court coming up with problems. There's no evidence of me doing anything wrongdoing on my behalf. Not my behalf, but on my part. And so I would think that the court was being legal proceedings, you provide evidence of, your complaint here.
Okay.
I see no evidence.
Let's go through these things. So we went through this. Do you remember when we went through this document? And is that your signature there at the bottom?
It is.
Okay. And do you remember that this was because after we went through all of these warnings about if you represented yourself, and the question was, did you want to waive your right to counsel? Do you remember that?
Mhm.
And you indicated by your signature that you did want to waive your right to counsel. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, the question that I want to move to now is whether you understand what's going on here today so that your waiver remains valid. And so I just asked you, do you understand what the charges are? Do you understand that the charges are for a shooting of Mr. Garcia when it is alleged by the state that you used or exhibited a deadly weapon? Do you know that's what this is about?
All of these issues here today?
No, just what this case is about. That's what I want. Let's set aside those issues and I want you, or we can do them first because I want to give you the opportunity to speak to other issues that you're talking about. Are there other issues that you want to talk about, such as your ankle monitor and that you're in custody?
Well, there's no evidence that you presented with the court. The state, anyone that would warrant the actions taken today? There's no evidence that that's been presented that I've willfully violated my bonds. And I provided evidence to the contrary, it's just reviewed. And so that issue, I guess we can put that aside, because that's just situation. And the activities here were not warranted. And I understand the case presented against me by the state.
And what is that case presented by the state?
It's right in front of you, and you've just noted it.
But what I need to understand, and I would like you to answer, do you understand the charges that the state is making in this case?
I've seen the indictment.
Okay. And next, do you understand what is the role of the state here in this case? What's their job?
To prosecute, to present the evidence.
Okay. And what is my job here?
I'll allow myself to be enlightened by the court.
Well, it's to conduct these proceedings. People answer that in a lot of different ways. What is your understanding? What I'm trying to see is if you have an understanding of what we're all doing here today. Do you?
I'm going to, if there's any issues beyond the norm or any considerations, then you can enlighten me, but otherwise, I've been here, how many court dates have we had?
You have been here for court, that's right. But what I'm trying to get to is your understanding of the proceedings that we are here for today. What is your understanding of why we are here?
What is the court's position?
Do you know what the purpose of the jury is in this case?
I don't think we need to lower ourselves to that. Why would we need to discuss what the jury's exact purposes? That's all it is.
Well, I have to do an informal hearing, and that's what I'm doing right now. It's required under the Code of Criminal Procedure. And so that's why I have to ask these questions. And really what I'm wondering right now is are you not answering these questions because you're unwilling or because you don't know the answers to these questions? And the way we proceed very much depends on which of those it is.
Acting in my own defense, and up to this point, there have been no issues, and I'm well aware of the proceedings to this point. I don't need to discuss anymore. I don't think it's prudent, and so I'm waiting for to hear the court's position.
And you're absolutely right to the extent that we're talking about the evidence in the case. But do you understand what we are here doing today?
I'm listening.
No. Do you understand what we are here, what this trial is for?
I'm waiting for the court's position. If you're providing clarification, then I'm
asking you a question. Can you answer that question?
I'm awaiting clarification. That's my
Okay.
position.
What is my question?
What is your exact purpose in the courtroom today?
No. My question is, what is your understanding of what we are here doing today? What is this trial for?
I'm awaiting the court's position.
Okay.
I need the clarification.
Do you understand what the question is?
I heard the question, but I'd like the court's
Okay, what is that?
clarification.
What is that question?
What is the purpose of the proceedings today?
Very good. You understand the question. You heard the question. Now, can you give the answer to that question?
I would prefer to get clarification from the court before providing a response, and that's the position of the defense.
Okay. I believe that you understand what is going on here, but you are willfully not answering the questions because you don't want to answer the questions, not because you don't understand. So we'll be proceeding with the trial. The question now is, do you want to be present during this trial? You are in custody, but you absolutely may be present to hear the evidence that is brought against you, to cross-examine any witnesses that are here, and or to remain silent.
Considering the actions taken today, I don't think I should be here in the courtroom, and so no, I would not just sit while the proceedings continue.
Okay, we're going to proceed with your trial. Under the code, we can continue with your trial even if you voluntarily decide that you do not want to be here. And is that what your decision will be?
Yes.
Okay. If that changes at any point, transport officers, please understand that if he decides at any point that he wants to come and be present, make sure that he is available to be here. You will not be in handcuffs or restraints in front of this jury. The jury did not see what happened earlier when you were taken into custody. They do not know about that. So all of those things will continue for them not to know, because as you heard me say to them, they will make their decision based on the evidence and the law only. Okay. So if at any point you decide you want to be present, you just let them know. They're going to make sure that you are up here. Understood? Okay. All right. Step to the back for us.
I'd like to know what my things are.
We're gonna examine that quickly. Yes. Okay, let's please bring in the jury.
Judge, will you be giving any jury instruction about the defendant's desire to voluntarily absent himself?
You can go get the jury. Let me think on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I will be giving them instructions in accordance with Article 3303.
Thank you, Judge.
Motion and then that you start it for me. Okay. I have it. Just keep in the ball.
And Judge, would the court like to consider appointing a standby counsel or somebody to be present on the defendant's behalf?
No, he has no right to stand by counsel. I told him that in the threat of warnings. In accordance with Scarborough v. State. That he will be given no special consideration because of his lack of legal training or legal experience, and that he has no right to a standby counsel. I believe that he's competent, that he understands what is going on, and he has voluntarily absented himself.
All right.
You may be seated. Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. Under Texas law, in all prosecutions for felonies, the defendant must be personally present at the trial or any part thereof, provided, however, that in all cases when the defendant voluntarily absents himself after pleading to the indictment or information, or after the jury has been selected when trial is before a jury, the trial may proceed to its conclusion. This trial will proceed. State, you may continue with the witness.
Yes, Judge. Yes, Judge, I don't remember if I had already offered State's Exhibit 7.
You offered State's Exhibit 7. That's when the defendant asked to approach. There were no objections from him at that time, but I had not admitted it. At this time, State's Exhibit 7 is admitted.
Can we publish to the jury?
You may.
So where the shooting happened? 618 Rio, it's all in the school zone. So there's those two apartment complexes being built, to the left Emerson. And when I was coming in from Independence, went into the complex, the gentleman that we confronted him a couple times, he was looking at the trucks that stay there, but I was one. Everyone, and we confronted him like, hey, what are you doing? And that was a few months ago. Told my friend to talk to the apartment complex we went in. The lady that we told, she's like, oh, this is my last day here. I'm coming in. They're not here. I'm gonna have to come in on Monday or Saturday. And just coming on Monday and telling them we never did. We just let it be because we didn't want to be mean to somebody. Maybe he was just walking or whatever. But he was acting suspicious. And then I was coming back in for getting the food, and I saw him pass by me on the car. towards the field on Emerson on the backside. And driving my truck, and you know, when you're driving that way, there's one, I'm gonna keep waving him that way. And I think he thought I was doing a gun motion. So he starts chasing me in the complex, and I'm like, all right, that's that. So he said,
Chasing you on Twitter.
no, it was his wife, Tahoe.
Right, talking.
He lives there. We know the apartment
You guys
complex.
live there?
I can't remember what the apartment complex or the number is, just trying to think. I can put it out in the map of the actual thing, but, then I go to the school, I was like, this guy's not gonna do anything, so I turn around to see what he's in, I see the gun, he's already got it out, and that floor, shoots a couple times, and I just fucking go into the outlets. After coming up, I'm just staying on 35 on the side, and don't see him, so I just drive all the way over here, so I'm not staying in town. That's it. He shouldn't be in the complex anymore, I should have reported him, he should have got kicked out, and it should have never happened.
Like, you know, his name or anything?
The complex does.
Like, let's see what unit he stays in.
I can, we have a map of 618, I can show you the exact apartment complex on it. 618 over here, I can show you exactly, because we confronted him at the door because he walked through our truck, I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And this was a few months ago. And he's like, oh, we're just letting people walk the dog and stuff, and I'm like, no, this is the second time we've seen you doing this, like, don't do it anymore, like, we have a lot of stuff in our vehicles, and we don't need to be taken. And he just looks at us and we're like, all right, it's fine, but we.
Right, so as far as where he actually shot you, that was where?
Yeah, 618 over here. But he was chasing me in the complex and we drove towards, was it Rodriguez School? Or, forgot the name of it.
Yes, sir.
And we drove around into it, and I was like, he's not gonna do anything, we're gonna expose on it, sure enough, he pulls it out. More than I get out of there. My truck's out there too, it's a red F-250, you don't wanna take photos of that.
Yeah, if you don't mind, where did you park it at?
It's, when the entrance is facing back,
Like
it's
the
right,
entrance?
it's F-250, yeah.
Alright,
You see on the keypad and in the middle of the floor, I think.
alright, how many shots fired total?
2 or 3, I'm not 100%.
I wanna put up a map of over there.
Yeah, I'll show you.
It out, so
Which one and what doors it's facing.
alright, so that's first under choice.
So let's see, that's the main. This building right here, so instead of looking straight, it's the door to the left, it goes upstairs, that's it right there.
When you say you drove a white Tahoe,
White Tahoe.
you know the LP?
Or,
Or,
maybe somewhere on.
right,
Yeah, another friend of mine, she might have a photo of my face.
is that quarter mile?
Probably your own, Jordan,
So you were just driving through the complex, you saw
on the back
it,
end of it, I saw it like this. And, you know, it was turning like this, and I think he thought I was signaling a gun to him, which, no, I own one too. I'm still gonna say how you would run, even if you freaking, you know, do wrong to me, I'm still gonna treat you nice, right?
so you started chasing you.
And so I changed the camera, this is because I got,
You said you came up here to school,
right here where that turnaround's at, right there.
right?
Right up in here where that
Or
turnaround.
were they just,
Yeah, when they had a crosswalk, and I saw him, and I saw the guy, before the guy out there.
yeah,
After he shot him too.
so you don't know his name,
No, but the complex, you can call them and they'll know exactly, they know have everybody's name, there's only one person that lives there.
how tall was
6'3", 4'8", 170,
he? Black, sorry.
Caucasian. You're a dirty blonde hair, I think it's blonde, maybe. Dirty blonde.
We didn't the payments, they might make it a whole entire, so I just wanna make sure that.
Yeah, yeah, first, so yeah, so subject to 3 shots, you drove straight here, after? You said you put it in the outlaws or something?
Yeah, St. Mark's out in the mall. Check my wounds real quick, make sure how to see how to do there. If I need to contact somebody there or drive to the place and Didn't see enough blood or pain to really stop right there and worry about it there or they will report, you know.
Or you don't know the unit number for
No, but you can call it right now, they'll tell you right away, it's one single person.
and it just comes out of that one, right there.
Yeah, this one, it's gonna be on facing outside. Instead of the door straight, it's the door to the left, and it goes upstairs. White Tahoe, single gentleman that lives there.
Alright, and then, are you cool with us looking through your truck, and all that?
Yeah, it's just got,
We just want to see as far as.
yeah, clothes, it's got clothes and.
Alright, that's pretty good, that's what I should go through.
Yeah, the keys are inside, you probably won't be able to get in now, I just realized it. Cause he shot the door, keypad, that's not unlock it, but it's all straight, so it's just not the last one, it's the second to last, you press it until it unlocks. So it made damage. And that's what he shot.
Alright, well, let me give you your, payments.
I would be really paying right now.
Officer Vargas, were you able to ever go out and look at the victim's car in this case?
Yes, sir, I was.
Were you able to corroborate that there was any damage to the car?
Yes, sir.
What did you notice?
I noticed 2 holes in the driver's side door.
And about how big were those holes?
They appear to be from a 9mm or 40 caliber.
After you were able to look at the defendant's car, did you do any further investigation in this case?
No, sir.
Thank you, Officer Vargas. No further questions.
Very good.
Can the witness step down?
He may be released.
Yes, Judge.
Sir, you're free to go about your business. Thank you for being here.
Yes, sir.
State, please call your next witness.
State called Elliot Garcia.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir, I do.
Please have a seat. Adjust yourself close to that microphone. It'll go up and down, and you can move the base as necessary. Okay. If you would, please tell us your name and spell it for the court reporter.
Elliot Garcia, ELLIOTT, Garcia, GARCIA.
Thank you very much. State.
All right, Elliot, now that you passed our spelling test, can you tell the jury a little bit about yourself?
I am 33 years old. I'm from Richmond, Texas. I'm a real estate agent. I have businesses with my parents, rental properties, and we do sell seasonal fireworks. I've been doing since I was 10 years old. I trim trees and I cut them down for individuals who own lots of different properties. And then I'm also a friend and a listening ear.
Busy man. All right, Elliot, where were you living back in November of 2023?
I stayed at a bunch of different places because I was in a rock and roll band as a roadie, and I know all the owners on the square of the restaurants and bars, and I know also the Moseses that own Texas State Tubes. So it's like second home to me here. So that's what I was staying at different people's houses, and then a friend of ours lived across the road in an RV park. So I was staying there because technically Mike lives there and they have a policy that I can only stay, I think, 3 or 4 days a month. That's it. But yes.
And you mentioned a friend of yours, Mike. Who's Mike?
He is the owner and operator of Invictus Pool Class Training.
And at that point in time, were you doing some work for Mike?
Yes, I was like his assistant, mechanic, salesman. I mean, everything, pulled the stuff in my truck, everything.
And where was Mike living back in November of 2023?
At Emerson Trace. I'm not sure of the apartment.
And you said you sometimes stayed with them off and on.
Yes, but I was with the pool stuff, it's long hours, super long hours, because paperwork and cleaning and taking cement to the garage, so it's not shrink as or lost to the weather. And because people pay a lot of money for their pools, and one thing goes wrong, it can be disastrous.
So back in November 2023, you were working long hours. Would you come and go regularly from that apartment complex?
Yes, all the work trucks are there, and I did have a decal on the truck, the same as the other work trucks. There's probably about 5 or 6 trucks there.
What kind of truck were you driving?
An F-250 diesel,
What color?
red.
And was that one of the work trucks that you mentioned?
Yes, it was like, I was like 1099, so I'm kind of working, but advertising, we need more business, but it's not his truck. But he did cover some expenses here and there, like oil changes, rotation and stuff like that.
So it's your truck, but he's helping you out with some of the expenses, and in exchange for that, you have a sticker or something on the side that's advertising this?
Yeah, so that way we can keep getting business, because pools, unless he is part of the Better Business Bureau, and he does have a 5-star rating on Google that sometimes that'll help, but being out in the public, that's definitely helped a lot.
And Elliot, have you ever had to do anything like this before?
No, man,
Are you a little nervous?
a little bit.
Okay. Do you understand what your number one responsibility is today?
I believe so, yes.
What is it?
So the whole truth and the
All right. May I first witness?
Yes.
Elliot, we're gonna start talking specifically about November 27th, but before we do that, I wanna show you State's Exhibit number 8, 9, and 10. Do these maps accurately show the areas that we're gonna be talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
At this time, I'm gonna offer State's Exhibits 8, 9, and 10. They have previously been tendered to defendant.
States Exhibit 8, 9, and 10 are admitted.
And Elliot, looking at State's Exhibit number 8 up here, is this the apartment complex that we've been talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall where the work trucks, you mentioned there were about 5 of them, where they were usually parked?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And if I give you a laser pointer, do you think you could indicate that here on the big screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, use this responsibly, okay? Where were your work trucks usually parked?
Right here in the far corner, or let me see, this corner right here, next to the road. This whole back line did not have any power, so it was pitch black most times. And Mike lived right in this complex, right here. And he had a garage right here. So the work trucks are right here, the garage is right here, and Mike's right there. So it's pretty set up nice, so that way everything's in and out, and you can get inside and do what you need to do.
And prior to the incident that we're here about today, had you had any run-ins or concerns with occupants at that apartment complex?
Yes, it is.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
So on October 12th, about 9 o'clock, Mike and his girlfriend Brittany Keeter, they went out to go get Starbucks, and when they came back, they were pulling in to the back side of the road right here. And he was backing into the parking spots that are right here, and he saw somebody, his girlfriend saw somebody by my truck. And then the guy ducked down as soon as they were pulling in, because the parking spots are like an angle. So it lined up perfectly to shine the light right there. And she gets out of the car, she's a bartender, she's also been I think she's a manager at one of the local big chain grocery stores. So she's used to dealing with anybody, she's like a no fear woman. And she also knows a lot of the police in San Marcos as well, which helps out too sometimes if something happens. But,
So she's a pretty confident lady.
oh yeah, more confident than me.
And so what happened when Mike and his girlfriend kind of confront this person that's ducking around by your work truck?
She presses him, he's trying to park the car, Mike calls me, his phone dies as he's me calling me. So I'm like, texting, hey, did you butt down me? No response, they come in and tell me, hey, there was somebody by the trucks over there and we're looking into yours and we're not sure what's going on, he disappeared. So I get out and go there, look with him and look around, and so we end up telling the neighbors, we end up telling the trash pickup people that, hey, there's somebody out here doing something, we don't know who it is, we're in a secluded area, it's far off from any kind of neighborhood, it's its own little fortress, I guess you could say, without gates.
And I'm sure it sounds like kind of a silly question, but why would you be worried about someone going around looking in your trucks at night?
Diesel engine, all the trucks are pretty much diesel, the engines can run from 5,000 up, and that's not including labor. And if something gets in the fuel lines and it clogs it up and we have no idea, we're diagnosing the thing, and then, you know, to take the engine out, you have to take the whole cab off. And, you know, it gets costly. And at that time too, Mike was in the process of not getting a few checks from people, so we were waiting, and we couldn't afford to lose anything at that point in time.
Okay, so you were concerned about your truck's safety at that point.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you actually see the guy that Mike's girlfriend had seen around your truck that night?
Not that night, the following night we did.
Okay, tell us about that following night.
So around 11 o'clock, Mike comes back because his girlfriend's working at the bar. He went and spent a few minutes over there talking to her about her day and came home. And then I get a phone call of him and I'm like, all right, answer this time. Maybe it's the same thing. Sure enough, it's the same thing. We go outside, the guy's walking to his complex apartment, which is right over here. So we follow him to his complex and we confront him and say, sir, what are you doing over there? You're, the second time in a row, what's the issue? He turns around, he's got a little string backpack with nothing in it, and he's like, people can walk their dogs and walk out here, and I'm like, no, we're asking you what you're doing, like, because it's 2 nights in a row. Mike was furious, but he wanted to do mutual combat, but the gentleman did not agree, and we didn't do anything further than that. But we're gonna go to the complex on Saturday and talk about it, and get the complex involved, and let's see if we can solve this without having to get law enforcement first. Let's create paperwork. Let's get this going, because this is obviously a 2 days back to back.
When you and Mike, when you confronted this individual, did either one of you have any guns or weapons with you?
No, man, we've never had any guns.
And you said Mike was willing to fight this guy.
Yes, because his correspondence were stretched thin, and 2 nights back to back. He didn't let one night go just because maybe he was searching around and got caught. But 2 nights, I mean, it's a pattern already.
Was there actually any physical violence between Mike and this guy who had been looking around at your trucks?
Absolutely nothing.
And when y'all left at the end of that confrontation, at that point, did you think anything else was really going to happen about this?
When I saw the look in his eye, and like I stated, the string backpack with nothing in it, I already, because I've been out in all over the United States and been around many people and seen many complexes, I already knew that there was something in the back. Nobody carries a string backpack around with nothing in it. You can barely kind of see a little outline of something. I already knew there was something in there. And when he turned around, I saw the look in his eyes. I was like, we're not doing anything because it's violence is not going to solve it.
And were you intimidated by this guy?
Somewhat, because he is tall, 6'5". I'm only $170, 5'10".
During that second incident, did you see him have a weapon at all?
I just assumed in the backpack because it looked like an empty backpack with just a little small object inside.
And I'm going to approach and I'm going to show you what has not been admitted but has been marked as State's Exhibit number 55. And I understand this may not be the clothing that you saw him in, but can you tell me, is the individual that you see here the person that we've been talking about who was looking into cars that you and Mike confronted?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you and Mike actually go to the apartment complex to report these incidences and your concerns?
Yes, ma'am. We went there on the 14th on Saturday. The girl that was the secretary there, it was her last day, and they were closing the complex 5 hours early for her last day for whatever reason. She did not want to send an email. She did not want to talk to her manager. She didn't want to do anything, but she did tell us that there was only one person living in that complex. That's all she told us. And then I pleaded one more time, hey, is there anything that you can do? She's like, I'm like, so, and at that time we were starting a job, 2 jobs in Gonzales, worth over about $45,000 cost, not total, a total amount. And we really need these paychecks. So 21-day contract, we're gonna start, and then another 10-day one after that. So it's been nearly 35+ days in Gonzales after that.
So given that you weren't staying in San Marcos, were you overly concerned about this guy and your threats?
After we got those contracts for the job, I was gonna be over there working. I really wasn't. After that, I was just focused on the mission and keep the business rolling.
On November 27th of 2023, did you end up coming back to this apartment complex that we see here in State's Exhibit number 8?
Yes, ma'am. We were coming back from Thanksgiving holiday, and after we finished those contracts, I got paid. And towards the winter time, full stuff does slow down, so I was trying to collect my last check on that Monday.
And who are you going to collect that check from?
From Michael Gonzalez.
And where were you going to collect it?
To the apartment complex, as stated.
And can you explain to us, and it may help if we looked at State's Exhibit number 9, that red dot, does that indicate the apartment complex we were looking at?
Yes, ma'am.
How would you go about getting to this apartment complex?
Unless you're coming from San Antonio, there's only one entrance right here to get to this way, but most of the work is either Austin, further north, or Incident Work. So we would have to come down Posey Road, come through the subdivision over here, come to the subdivision, past the school, come down here to get to the apartment complex.
And did you make any stops along the way as you were headed to Mike's apartment?
Yes, I stopped at Penal Express.
And did you actually make it to the apartment complex?
Yes, I did.
Can you and let's actually go back for a minute to State's Exhibit number 8. Can you show us how you entered the apartment complex and where you went?
So I came around the front part, came around the back side right here, as you normally do, because it's, instead of going through, there's a lot of bumps in the middle. Came to right here, and that's when Mr. Dickerson was coming around. And he passed me, and I waved at him because it was my last day there, and I'm like, bye, I'm not gonna have to deal with this anymore. And as soon as I waved at him, he passes, he turns around, starts following me. So I floor it, come down the middle of this garage apartment right here, stop right here, see that he's still coming instead of going to his apartment, floor it again, come through around here, wait down to this backside again, comes around again, floor it, come down to this part, come around, do a little slight backup. To almost kind of come back this way to see if he's going a different way. He comes again, come out to the front of the entrance, come out there. It's like, all right, let's go to the school because maybe he obviously has something he wants to tell me. And if I go to the school, at least we know, I didn't say this prior, but after Thanksgiving, they had actually had the kids walking for some kind of exercise along these roads to the school. So I was like, maybe he might have seen it. It's also school's in session. Maybe it's a nice talking point where nothing bad can happen.
So you mentioned that when you first saw, and you've called him Mr. Dickerson, you know his name now.
Yes, now.
Did you know that then?
No, I haven't. She doesn't feel that information.
Did you recognize him when you saw him?
Oh, yes, I've seen his white Tahoe a couple times, but don't pay any mind to it.
And you mentioned that you waved at him. How did you wave at him?
I'm leaning back in my truck and I go, and he took, I guess he just, took it the wrong way or was having a bad day or had a clouded lens in his life and he perceives me in that option. I'm not 100%, couldn't tell you.
Okay, but immediately after that is when you said you noticed he was following you.
He turned around right away and I was like, oh, I don't even, hopefully he's going back home. Let me go around and see. And he proceeded to follow.
Okay, so you described for us how through the apartment complex how you went.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at State's Exhibit number 9, once you left the apartment complex, where did you go?
So I came to right, there's a little turnaround before this little circle, and I perceived it to be 2,000 feet within the school zone. So I turned around quickly to face him, and he already had the gun pointed out, and I had my window slightly open, I saw it, and I floored it. And the entry point coming into the car, you can see that it came like this versus straight forward. So I was already heading out of there as quickly as I could as soon as I seen him.
And Elliot, I have to ask, when you realized that this guy who you had a confrontation with before was following you, why didn't you pick up your phone and call the police?
Because I was trying to get away and I can't do two things at once sometimes too. And hopefully I was hoping he would just stop and it was my last day. So I was like, after another 2 or 3 hours, I was gonna be gone. I'm not even gonna worry about it. It's not even my issue.
Did you think that he was gonna continue to follow you if you went towards the school and there were kids around?
If he did, and he didn't want to talk about something, we would talk about it in a normal manner with, in the school zone. So anybody with a moral compass would definitely take kids into consideration and hinder their actions accordingly.
Did you feel like you would be safer if you went towards the school?
Yes, ma'am.
Looking at State's Exhibit number 10, do you see the intersection that you were just mentioning to us?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you show us where in that intersection it was that you actually turned around?
Right here. So when you come around here, I had to take a wide turn, came right here, and he was coming right here. And as soon as I came to this front part, I saw the gun out and I reflored it.
So when you turned around, what was your intention at that point in time?
I was going to roll my window down and say, what's the deal? Like, why are you following me? What do you want to talk about? Let's talk about it. But there was no words exchanged. The window was not rolled down. You can tell because if he would have shot me and my window was rolled down, the whole window would have been shot.
And how many times did he shoot at you?
2 times.
And did he hit you?
Yes, one time, slightly underneath the skin, came in my left hip, basically the top super upper part of my scrotum, and the bullet sat inside my pen. So the bullet came out, and I had a little burn on my side.
And it's gonna sound like a silly question, but how did it feel to get shot?
It was more adrenaline. Because I climbed trees and I had jumped out of airplanes and like I said, been a roadie and been and seen big concerts. So it was like that, but another level that, you know, your blood pressure is 170 or 100. And I don't know, I heard some of the audio. That beeping is them telling me that I need to get attention.
And if we come back here to State's Exhibit number 9, can you show us after you were shot, where did you go?
So I floored it from that point, ran the stop sign, drove all the way down to the San Marcos outlet mall, just to check my wounds to make sure I had not hit my femoral artery. I do have a background in trying to be a nurse, so I knew that as long as it's not leaking heavily, I'm not in any crazy critical pain, that I can definitely get someplace. And I did not want to stay local, because if he stayed local and he came to the hospital, and could possibly start shooting at people, that's why I prayed. It was a great.
So did you feel like it was safest for you to get out of San Marcos?
Yes, ma'am. And Michael originally lived in Kyle, and he had mentioned it to me because that's where he had gone when he was a kid. So I was like, maybe Kyle's probably the better option because it's right on the road versus New York.
And did you call anybody or tell anybody about what had just happened to you?
Yes, as soon as I got shot, I called Mike. I was like, hey, do not come to the complex. I'm heading to the hospital right now. Like, I don't know where to go. And he's like, all right, I'm with the customer right now. I can't really react to this how I would like. Let me call his girlfriend, Brittany Peter, and she, of course, has law enforcement already in her phone. I don't know if she called anyone or she called somebody directly, but she made a phone call for us.
Okay. And after you got to Seton Hayes and Kyle, did officers come and talk to you about what had happened?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you tell them everything that you could that you remembered about what had happened?
Yes, ma'am.
And did they call you after you got out of the hospital just to make sure that they had all the correct information?
They probably the following day, not the same night, because it was still ongoing into the 11 o'clock hour after that. Good, so it was still ongoing. The whole situation was still ongoing, even after I got out of the ER.
So they continue to follow up with you to make sure that they had the most up-to-date information?
Yeah, and then they said as long as your stuff is still accurate with what you gave, that should do as well.
And Elliot, I have one last silly question for you. Where you were actually shot, if you know, is that location in Hayes County, Texas?
I'm not 100%. I want to say it is because it is San Marcos still. It's at a 78666 address, so I'm assuming it's Hayes County.
Okay, and if you're not sure, it's okay. Elliot, I do need to ask you, did you do anything to provoke Mr. Dickerson prior to him shooting you? Anything at all?
No, ma'am.
Did you have a weapon with you that day?
No, ma'am.
Did you at any point threaten Mr. Dickerson or anybody else with any type of harm?
No, ma'am.
I pass the witness, Judge.
Very good. May this witness be released.
Yes.
Sir, thank you very much. You're free to go about your business.
Thank you, Your Honor.
State, please call your next witness.
State calls Dwayne Corboy.
You please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, Judge.
Please have a seat. If you would adjust that microphone close to you in your chair, and if you tell us your name and spell it for the record.
My name is Dwayne. It's D-U-W-A-Y-N-E, Poorboy, P-O-O-R-B-O-Y.
State.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm a sergeant in the San Marcos Police Department.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about your background that qualifies you to be a peace officer here in the state of Texas?
Yes, so I graduated from Texas State and then got hired by the city. They paid for me to go to the police academy. I graduated from that police academy, went to field training, which is where you ride with another officer for a time until they say you're good to, be out on your own. And did that for 3 years. Went into investigations as a detective, criminal investigations division. And then from there, spent 7.5 years in narcotics before coming back out to the street and promoting a couple times. And I'm currently a sergeant with the Special Investigations Unit, which is a part of the Criminal Investigation Division. We target violent offenders, hopefully before they get to the point of, violence against strangers.
And Sergeant Portwood, if I were to ask you about how many hours of training you have in various areas of law enforcement, do you have any idea what that number might look like?
But yes, I'm a master peace officer. It's thousands of hours on top of education as well.
So in addition to the police academy that you go through at the beginning of your career, do you have to continue to keep up with continuing education in your field?
Absolutely.
And have you continued to do that?
I have.
Do you actually assist in training other officers in various areas of law enforcement?
I do.
Were you actually one of the officers that responded out to an apartment complex in San Marcos, Texas on November 27th of 2023?
Yes, I was.
And why would a sergeant in the investigations division be going out to assist what would ordinarily be patrol officers responding to a call like this?
Sure. So at that time, I was the field training officer sergeant. So I was the supervisor over that program. We had a police officer. I don't remember the exact circumstances, whether, a field training officer needed a break or they needed me to evaluate this probationary police officer to see if he was going to continue in our program or not.
And do you recall the name of the officer that was your probationary police officer that night?
Yeah, that was Officer Luciano.
And do you recall exactly how many San Marcos police officers responded to that location?
Dozens.
And why is it for a call like this, you would need dozens of officers to respond?
So the initial response required a lot of officers because we're trying to locate the subject. It's concerning, violence is concerning, but when it's against a stranger, in my mind, it's even more concerning. And so we wanted to locate him and take him into custody as quickly as possible. However, once we realized that he was inside of his residence, that raises lots of red flags for us as far as what people have inside their homes. This is Texas. You can think guns and those kinds of things. And so based on those circumstances and the fact that he wasn't responding, I actually attempted to call the defendant a few different times, texted him, he never responded. And so based on that, we called out our SWAT team, the Special Weapons and Tactics team for Hays County, which has dozens of members from the various law enforcement agencies here.
So in addition to the San Marcos Police Department, did other agencies respond as well to assist?
Yes.
And let's kind of maybe back it up a little bit. Initially, when officers responded to this apartment complex, did you have kind of sketchy information?
Yes, and which is pretty common. We don't, we would like to have as much information as early as possible, but oftentimes these investigations, information trickles in.
And if as a supervisor, are you responsible for kind of assigning different officers to different tasks?
I often do that. In this particular case, I did do that, but I wasn't considered the incident commander. There's usually a sergeant or higher that is over the entire incident. So initially, Sergeant Tony Scott was in charge of the incident command, and he spoke to Officer Casino and said, hey, can y'all go down and look for some shell casings? We believe we know where this might have occurred, and sent us down there. And then once I got back, I took on the role of kind of placing officers, making sure they were aware of kind of what the situation looked like, and then kind of the next steps that we were going to take.
So initially, when it's kind of this shooting investigation, Sergeant Scott kind of took the lead role, is that correct?
He oversaw the entire incident, that's right.
And as things kind of developed and you realized that this may end up being a SWAT situation, did you kind of take more of that leadership role?
Yes.
And why would that be?
At the time, I was over our crisis negotiation team. And so negotiators, when SWAT comes out, when they're deployed, we come out and attempt to make contact with whether it be a person in crisis or a criminal defendant, which is obviously in this case.
So obviously you guys were out at this apartment complex for a considerable amount of time, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's kind of start with what some of other officers were working on while you and Officer Casino were looking for those shell casings. Do you know, did any member of the San Marcos Police Department make contact with the apartment staff?
They did.
Based on the information from the 911 call and from what other officers were gathering, talking to other witnesses and the victim at the hospital, were you able to gather information from the apartment complex to identify a potential suspect?
Yes.
Beverage witness?
May.
Sergeant, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 11. Does that appear to contain the information that was obtained by the apartment complex?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was provided to the San Marcos Police Department?
Yes.
And based on this information, did you guys continue your investigation and ultimately take Mr. Dickerson into custody?
We did.
And looking at State's Exhibit number 12, does that appear to be the apartment that Mr. Dickerson resided in?
Yes.
And State's Exhibit 13 and 14, would that be the vehicle identified as belonging to Mr. Dickerson?
It is.
And then while I'm up here, I'm going to go ahead and show you State's Exhibit 15, 16, 17, and 18, and ask you, do those photographs accurately show the scene that you were physically at that evening?
It does.
And the evidence that was collected?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I am going to offer State's Exhibits 11 through 18.
State's Exhibit 11 through 18 are admitted.
And Sergeant, let's start here with State's Exhibit number 10. Was there a particular area that we can see here in State's Exhibit 10 that you and Officer Casina ended up spending a considerable amount of time that evening?
Yeah, I see Van Horn Trace. What I don't see on there is the Salamander Street, because it was that intersection.
Fair enough.
I guess this work, maybe that'll help me.
You're welcome to try. I doubt it does.
Okay.
Oh, that doesn't help. That doesn't work.
Okay, perfect.
You can stand and show us.
Yeah, so the hard part is I don't see the, I can describe it, but I don't see the apartment complex, Emerson Trace. So you come off of 35 and we,
How about if we look at State's Exhibit number 9? Would that maybe help?
yes. So we went past, there's an intersection, there's Salamander Road or Street, like somewhere in here. That's the intersection we were at. We were at Van Horn Trace and Salamander Street. Was the intersection that we actually located the shell casings.
And why was it important in your investigation to look for and try to collect shell casings?
Because once we get shell casings, there's analysis that can be done at the lab where we can say, and I'm not exactly certain on the science behind it, but they can basically match the shell casings with a gun and say, hey, you know, we're certain that this gun fired this casing. And so as a matter of practice, even if we don't have suspects, even if we don't have even victims, we will oftentimes collect those So because it will connect, other crimes, has the potential to do that, so we do that quite a bit.
And coming back for a minute to State's Exhibit number 11, the information that was obtained from the apartment complex. Did you guys have a vehicle description and a specific apartment number as well as a suspect name?
Yes.
And looking at State's Exhibit number 12, is that the suspect's apartment?
Yes, the one on the left there.
If you know from this photograph, was this taken before or after the SWAT standoff when Mr. Dickerson was finally taken into custody?
Based on the looks like munition rounds that hit above there, that this would be after the fact, and also we wouldn't be that close to the, given the circumstances, we would have been that close beforehand.
And you mentioned that you're part of the negotiation team. Can you explain to us, in a situation like this, why was it even necessary in the first place to contact SWAT and have that particular unit respond?
So, besides being police officers, whether you're on the negotiation team or the SWAT team, there's extensive training and equipment that comes with being a member of that team. So our team, for example, trains at least 22 hours a month to keep up with all the different certifications and all the training that it requires to deal with situations, inside people's houses. Essentially, there's not going to be any element of surprise here, and so we just don't want regular people wearing regular body armor, going and knocking on this gentleman's door or trying to make entry, and so they bring out armored vehicles, specialized weapons, those kinds of things, and so when they're out there, we will then at that point attempt to communicate with them and negotiate with them so that we don't get hurt and they don't get hurt.
And were you part of the attempts to communicate with Mr. Dickerson?
Yes, I made the initial attempts before I switched over to the team leader role.
And how are you actually trying to communicate? Are you picking up a phone? Are you yelling?
So I tried, we got a phone number for him. I tried a few times to contact him. I also texted him. I left him a message at one point, letting him know that who I was and that I needed to speak to him.
Is part of the negotiating also based on evidence gathering or information gathering about the person you're trying to contact?
So I wouldn't say evidence necessarily, because our role is about the safe ending of this. And so, for example, if he wanted to talk about the case, we wouldn't shut him down necessarily, but we're more concerned about how do we end this safely. So we're more interested in his mental health state, any substance abuse issues, and those kinds of things. Those are paramount to a negotiation versus a criminal investigation. Once we get him out safely, then the investigators would be interested in like, hey, where are your guns at? Where's this? Where's that? So our team, while we're attempting to talk to them, are also reaching out to family, friends, anybody that knows this person, because we are looking for those things that we call hooks. How do we get into this person? How do we build a rapport with this person so we can end this thing safely? And so it doesn't always include those criminal elements.
So there's maybe some investigation going on, but it's not so much on the criminal side. It's more just general information gathering about that person.
That's correct.
Did you go through all of those steps in this particular incident?
Yes.
Were you able to actually make contact with Mr. Dickerson?
No.
Based on everything that you saw, including State's Exhibit number 13 and 14, his vehicle at the apartment complex, did you believe that he was still located inside that apartment?
Yes, based on everything we knew, that's a big part of, before we call a SWAT team, we want to make sure that they're in there because they have a protocol and things like that. So the last thing that we wouldn't be doing is being out there when no one's home and doing all the things that they do to try to get this person to come out.
So initially, when the San Marcos Police Department responds to this apartment complex, you guys are just in your initial investigation phase, is that correct?
Yes.
And then as you're continuing to gather information and you realize that you have a suspect apartment, and then a vehicle that's still there and nobody that says he's left, do you realize that you're potentially gonna encounter a barricaded subject?
Yeah, and by definition, that's exactly what they're called criminal barricades. If you got an individual, that committed a criminal offense, they're in there by themselves, which, you know, that's a better situation than being there with other people, because then we were concerned about hostages and things like that, but in this particular case, yeah, criminal barricade.
So we kind of shift from that initial criminal investigations to kind of a more defensive mode from law enforcement. Is that safe to say?
Well, I think initially, I would say it was defensive, but at the same time, because he wasn't communicating with us, because he wasn't answering the phone and trying to have a dialogue with us, the SWAT team has their protocols, and so they'll start to say, hit the door and open that door up, and they'll put gas in, they'll do those kinds of things that I would say the offense of that.
What was the last sentence? I would say.
They would put gas in, and that would be offensive, in my opinion.
And looking at State's Exhibit number 12, do we see some evidence of some of those more offensive tactics?
Yes, got the broken window there to the right. You've got where it looks like some of the munitions hit, the pink and orange markers there.
Where my mouse is? Is that where the area you're talking about?
Yes.
What causes that kind of mark on a building?
That's the way that I don't know exactly why that is, but I know that they have those markers to make sure that people understand, like, this is not, you're not being shot at, but it is going to put gas out. But those could have also been trying to hit the window. Again, I don't know exactly all of the way that they do business, so I see the broken window, so that could have been misses, I don't know.
So even when you start transitioning from the negotiation, the trying to talk him out, to now using some of those more aggressive tactics, the offensive tactics that you mentioned, the SWAT team, and in this case, did they still attempt to use less than lethal force?
Yes, of course.
The ammunition rounds that we can see here, the large holes and kind of that orange mark, does that indicate to us that SWAT team was using any specific type of weapons?
Yeah, those would be considered less lethal. I mean, we're trying to get this individual to come out from their stronghold.
And do you know, was the SWAT team eventually successful in detaining Mr. Dickerson?
They were.
Was that after they had to switch to some of the more aggressive or offensive tactics that you described?
Yes, they had to gas him out.
And prior to trying to negotiate and getting into this SWAT standoff, looking at State's Exhibit number 15, were you guys able to complete kind of some of those more basic criminal investigation steps?
Yes.
What do we see here in State's Exhibit number 15?
So this is that intersection that I was referencing. That's me. There's a couple of detectives in the background, but they've got some markers, some evidence markers that they created. You'll see one to the right of me there, and then right there where those three red lines are, closer to the detectives, you'll see another one. Those are the two shell casings that were located and subsequently taken into evidence by the detectives.
And looking at State's Exhibit number 16, do you see one of those evidence markers?
Yes.
And in fact, kind of in the background there, can we see the second evidence marker as well?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 17, can you actually see what that little placard was there to mark?
Yes, shell case.
Was there anything unique about these shell casings that stood out to you that you recall?
Just only that they were neck down, but I'm not a firearm. That's a pretty unique firearm casing.
And State's Exhibit number 18, did those appear to be the same type of ammunition or the same type of cartridges?
They did.
And you mentioned that those were collected as evidence. Are you familiar with how the San Marcos Police Department processes evidence generally?
Yes.
So something like this, a fired cartridge case that you're collecting, how would an officer collecting that make sure that it is properly processed as evidence?
So, you know, they're going to photograph take lots of photographs of it, and then they'll take it into our evidence processing area. We got manuals that are there on different types of evidence, and so you literally go to, you know, shell casings, and it'll tell you exactly how to package them. And depending on what you want done with the shell casing, there's an evidence action form that we have to complete, like, hey, I want this into the lab for item testing, or, you know, I want to resolve this, whatever it is, the officer makes that request. Or the detective will, if say the officer didn't need to do something, the detective could after the fact say, hey, I really want this piece of evidence tested in this way.
Does the collecting officer have to seal that item of evidence in any particular way?
Yes, and so we've got plastic, we've got paper bags, we've got all kinds of different containers. But once we seal the plastic bags, in this case, you will initial and you'll date on both sides of that. And so that way, if it gets torn open, it'll be obvious that somebody opened it.
And is the unique case number for each particular incident San Marcos responds to also put somewhere on that item of evidence with packaging?
Yes.
In fact, is there a barcode system that the San Marcos Police Department evidence room uses?
Absolutely.
And to be fair, that's not your area of expertise, is it?
That's correct.
But it is something that you are familiar with.
Yes, ma'am.
And as far as you know, is that done with the cartridges that you and your probationary police officer located in this case?
Oh, yes, where they put in evidence properly?
Correct.
Yes. If you don't do it properly, they'll reject it and have you do it again.
I'll pass the witness.
May this witness be released?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you very much for being here. You're free to go about your business. State, please call your next witness.
State call speaking at. Motto.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please have a seat. Adjust yourself close to that microphone if you can, and it'll come up and down as necessary. If you would, please tell us your name and spell it for the court reporter.
Katie Mata, Katymata.
State.
How are you employed, ma'am?
Currently, I work for the San Marcos Police Department as a crime scene and evidence technician.
What does a crime scene evidence technician do?
We respond to crime scenes, and we also are the vault custodian for any property and evidence that comes into the department.
How does evidence come into the evidence room?
If an officer goes to a call and he collects an item, they would package it. They place a barcode label on it, so we know what the item is, and that is also how we track the item. And then they drop it in a secure locker, which only we can access. Once we complete the intake to make sure everything's packaged correctly, we either prepare it for the lab or store it in the vault.
Now, are you a licensed peace officer in the state of Texas?
No.
Can you tell us a little bit about your training background that qualifies you for the work that you do?
So I started my career at SAPD as a crime scene investigator there for 5.5 years. So I have a lot of on-the-job training there, as well as 400 hours of TOEFL credits. And I'm also a certified crime scene investigator. And then I also have my basic certification for evidence and property.
So in addition to your background, have you continued to maintain updated education when it comes to your areas?
Yes.
Is that required in your job?
No.
Have you done it anyways?
Yes.
Why?
Just to keep up to date on any new science that comes out, any policy changes, or best practices.
And you mentioned that officers can collect evidence and bring it to you. Are there occasions when you yourself actually respond to scenes?
Yes.
What types of situations would have someone like you respond to a scene?
Something more major, so any kind of shooting or homicide, suspicious deaths, calls like that.
And I have to ask, is it at all like any of the TV shows, the CSI shows?
No.
In this particular case, were you on duty or on call on November 27th of 2023?
Yes.
Did you get a call to respond out and assist officers with examining and collecting evidence?
Yes, I did.
What type of a call was it, as far as you were aware?
An aggravated assault.
And was there one location that you went to or multiple locations?
Multiple locations.
Do you recall which location you went to first?
The first location I went to was the Seton Hayes Hospital, where the victim was.
And would that victim be Elliot Garcia?
Yes.
And do you have a report that you prepared?
I don't have one on me.
Would you like to use one?
Yes.
This is everybody's report, so you're gonna have to look through and find yours. So the person who you went and saw at Seton Hayes that was being treated, would that have been Elliot Garcia?
Yes.
Did you take photographs of his injuries?
I did.
Can you tell us what you recall about the injuries you observed?
Yes, I believe he was shot.
And what makes you believe that he was shot?
Because he had an apparent bullet hole in his body.
I understand sometimes it sounds like silly questions, but I gotta ask. I'm gonna show you state's exhibit number 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. Do state's exhibits number 20 through 25 accurately show a vehicle that you also examined at the Seton Hayes parking lot?
Yes, it does. They do.
Does it accurately show the damages that you observed to that vehicle?
Yes.
And while I'm up here, I'm gonna go ahead and show you state's exhibit number 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Do those photographs accurately show another scene that you responded to regarding this case later that same evening?
Yes.
Does it accurately show an item of evidence, specifically a firearm that was collected by you or other members of the San Marcos Police Department that day?
Yes.
This time I would offer state's exhibits 20 through 30.
State's exhibit 20 through 30 are admitted.
Okay, starting here with state's exhibit number 20, what type of a vehicle did you observe at Seton Hayes?
This red Ford truck.
And looking at state's exhibit 21, did you observe anything that stood out to you as a crime scene investigator?
Yes, there was 2 apparent bullet holes in the driver door.
And is that depicted here in state's exhibit 21?
Yes.
And State's Exhibit number 22, what did you do to kind of better look at or better, I don't know, point out the bullet holes here?
So this is just more of a close-up view of the driver door, and then we just put little labels there, scales, so that it's easier to see what you're looking at.
And looking at State's Exhibit 23 and 24, are those just close-ups?
Yes.
And what about this type of damage makes you believe that it was caused by a bullet hole?
The paint, well, how it's dented in and then the paint chipping away.
And then looking at State's Exhibit 25, is that the second bullet hole that you located in that door?
Yes.
So you told us initially you went to Kyle to Seton Hayes. You saw Elliot Garcia in his hospital room, correct?
Correct.
You looked at his truck and documented anything significant that you observed there, right?
Correct.
Where did you go after that?
I actually went to the parking lot behind the outlet mall to look for any projectiles that might have fallen out of the vehicle. Because the victim advised that he had stopped there to see what was wrong with him, and he had stepped out of the vehicle, so we were thinking that maybe the projectiles fell out when he got out of his vehicle, but I wasn't able to locate anything.
So you stopped at the outlet mall to check to see if you could locate that projectile, but you could not.
Correct.
Where did you go after that?
Then we went to 618 El Rio Street.
And was that an apartment complex?
Yes.
And if you recall, was there a fairly lengthy process that SWAT and the San Marcos Police Department went through while they tried to take Mr. Dickerson into custody?
Yes.
You were not part of that, were you?
No.
Did you basically have to sit and wait until all that was done?
Yes.
And then did you have to wait for someone to get a search warrant signed by a judge?
Yes.
And once that was done, were you able to perform your actual duties at that scene?
Yes.
What were your job, or what was your job at this scene?
So once we arrived, or once I was allowed to go into the residence, I basically documented by taking photographs. And once my overall photographs were complete, we completed a search of the residence. And any items that were located, I photographed and determined what needed to be collected.
And so looking here at State's Exhibit number 26, would this have probably been one of the photos that you took?
Yes.
And if you recall from that front entry door, how would one access the particular apartment in question?
Through that door. Like you would have to go, yes, so when you entered the door, it was a stairs straight up to the apartment.
And was there any item of evidence or evidentiary significance that you located on that stairwell there?
Yes, there was a firearm.
And would that be towards the top or the bottom of the stairwell seen here in State's Exhibit 27?
I believe the middle.
State's Exhibit 28, is that a bit closer?
Yes.
And State's Exhibit 29, even closer.
Correct.
If you know, do firearms have any unique identifying numbers engraved on them?
Yes, they have serial numbers.
And this particular firearm, was it actually collected by you or an officer with the San Marcos Police Department?
Yes, it was collected by someone other than myself.
And part of your duties as a crime scene technician for the San Marcos Police Department, are you responsible for items of evidence that are collected by San Marcos Police Department officers?
Yes.
Is there a process that San Marcos police officers are required to go through to actually tag or collect an item of evidence?
Yes.
So for an item like we see here in State's Exhibit number 29, what are the steps that you're gonna have to go through to actually collect that as evidence?
So if you're collecting a firearm, you would want to make sure it was made safe, so unloaded. We always have somebody verify that it's unloaded. And then we package our firearms in a firearm box, and they're sealed with a piece of evidence tape with that person's initials and date on the tape, so that we know exactly how many times the firearm has been opened. And then we place a barcode label on there, so we can track everywhere that firearm goes and track the history of it.
And in a case like with a firearm where you have a unique identifying serial number, does the officer collecting it have any responsibility to document that in writing somewhere?
Yes.
Where do they do that?
They would document in the report and in the QTEL.
And
report system.
And in this case, when this firearm was collected, did you also duplicate that same information to make sure that it was there correct?
I wouldn't verify it specifically, we do test fire our firearms, and so once the firearms open, we verify that information again, just to make sure it's correct.
And looking now at State's Exhibit number 30, obviously we're no longer on the stairs, correct?
Correct.
What has changed in State's Exhibit number 30? What were you documenting with this photograph?
So here we're just showing that the firearm contained a magazine with live rounds inside.
And if you know, was this particular firearm test fired?
Yes.
What does it mean to test fire a firearm?
Basically, you would take the firearm to the range. We would test fire it, so fire the firearm and retrieve the casing, so that we know, so that we have the casing that actually came from that firearm and use it, verified it ourselves.
And in this particular case, was that done?
Yes.
Were you present for that?
I don't recall. I don't recall if I was there or not. I probably, but I don't recall.
Okay. Is there anything you need to look at to refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Please go ahead and do so.
I can't say for sure if I was the one that test fired it. Anyone that is in our office, so any one of our evidence technicians can go with an officer, sworn officer, to the range and fire the firearm. I don't have to be present. Any one of us can be present to keep chain of custody.
Is there anything in your records that indicates that the weapon was test fired and those sample test fires were collected?
Yes, it looks like we test fired the firearm on February 15th of 2024.
And when you recover a weapon, like what we see here in State's Exhibit number 30, where it had live ammunition in it, is it your regular practice when you test fire the weapon to go ahead and use the ammunition that was present in the gun?
No.
Why not?
Because those items are evidence, so if we were to open one, we would be tampering with the evidence that we collected that day.
So what type of ammunition do you use when you test fire the gun?
We use whatever our range master has on in stock, as long as it works with the firearm.
Do you recall, based on your review of your report and records, what was the make and model of the firearm that was recovered in this case?
It's a CZ62.
Is that a firearm that you've seen a lot of?
No.
Do you know what caliber weapon that was?
In our log, it says it's a 7.62 by 25 millimeter.
Is that a common caliber of firearms based on what you've seen?
No.
And do you happen to have the serial number for the firearm that was actually recovered and collected?
Yes.
What was that serial number?
M13221.
And based on your training and experience, does each firearm have a unique serial number?
There is a chance that they can have a duplicate serial number, but it would be for a different make and model of firearm.
So to have a make and model, it's only gonna have one particular make and model that has that particular serial number, is that safe to say?
Yes.
And when evidence like, for example, what we see here in State's Exhibit 30 is logged into the San Marcos evidence room, is there any documentation that goes on the physical item itself that helps you identify which case and which item you're dealing with?
Not on the specific item, just on the packaging.
Why is it important that you put it on the packaging and not on the item itself?
Since we can see the packaging, we don't have to open it every time to make sure that's what's inside. So, once it's sealed, we use the evidence tape every time it gets, opened by another person or department. Another piece of tape is placed on there, not over the original seal, so that we can see how many times and who has accessed the firearm.
And is there a barcode tracking system for evidence in the San Marcos Police Department?
Yes.
How does that work?
Every item is given a unique barcode.
And is each unique barcode associated with a particular case number?
Yes.
In this particular situation, what was the case number assigned to this investigation?
The case number was 2023-000460027.
And the firearm in question that we see here in State's Exhibit number 30, did it have a unique barcode number that was assigned to it?
Yes.
I'm gonna ask you to read it off because it's quite lengthy, correct?
No, I have it right here, it's not too long.
Okay, go ahead.
The barcode number for the firearm was 000488746.
Were there fire cartridges that were collected by officers at a separate location, if you know?
Yes.
Who collected those?
I believe they were turned in by Detective John Cope.
And what unique barcode number were those given?
One item was 000488743. The other item was 000488744.
And other than documenting the evidence and ensuring that the evidence room is run correctly to maintain that evidence, do you have any other roles in investigations like this?
No, we basically just give advice or tips to detective, and then whatever they decide we do for the lab, sending items to the lab and things like that.
If you know, were the firearms and the recovered fire cartridges that we just went through the barcodes for, were they sent off to any particular laboratory?
They were.
What lab were they sent to?
First, they went to ATF and put it into a system called Neidhardt. Then they came back and they went to the GPS crime lab in Austin.
And are you familiar with ATF and the Neidhardt system?
A little bit.
Can you explain the basics?
Basically, Neidhardt uses a specialized camera to take a picture of the head stamp. When the firearm is fired, the firing pin hits that cartridge case and it leaves almost like a fingerprint. And so they can use that to compare cartridge casings from other scenes to link cases together. It would be an investigative lead.
And so is sending firearms or recovered ammunition to Neidhardt fairly standard in all cases?
Yes.
How about sending it to that secondary lab that you mentioned?
Yes, because once we get the Neidhardt lead, it has to be examined by a firearms examiner, and then that's where it's sent to the lab.
And is that something that the San Marcos Police Department does in-house?
No.
Why not?
We don't have the equipment, nor are we firearms examiners.
But in this particular case, the evidence that we've recovered that we've talked about was sent first to the ATF and then to the GPS laboratory, is that correct?
Correct.
And throughout that process, was it maintained to your standards as far as your records reflect?
Yes.
Pass the witness.
May this witness be released?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. You're free to go about your business. All right, and what we will do now is take our lunch break. I want to remind you of the instructions. You are not to talk about anyone with this case. You won't begin to talk about this case with anyone or even just a few of you until all 12 of you are together and deliberating. Don't look up anything about this case on the internet. I don't know if there is anything. Don't text or tweet or put anything on social media about this case. Those are the restrictions for now. They'll all be lifted when the case is over. But for now, please follow those. It's all for the purpose of protecting the integrity of this process that we're going through. You all have a good lunch, and we'll start back at 12:45. Thank you.
All right, for the jury.